AI is amazing, so are people, so is human creativity. And the two, I think, can coexist and, truth be told, make one another better. Just AI in the hands of someone who is incredibly gifted at storytelling and understands filmmaking and lighting and all that stuff, it's going to be an exponentially better product than someone who tries to make a film who has none of that basis of knowledge or skill, right?
When intelligence became cheap and scalable, does real human value shifts toward the creativity, emotional depth, intuition, or being even more human, quirky? Here, Ari, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Ari Halper, and I am the Global Executive Creative Director and Head of Creative Excellence at RGA.
How does technology, which is AI today, really affects entire society, institutions, brands, and creativity at designers level, a creative level, writers and everything else? So it's like a structurally goes from a top down.
It's obviously way too soon to tell where it's going eventually. If I knew that, I'd probably be on an island somewhere making millions because I could predict the future. But I will say, at least now and in the recent future, or near future, sorry, that the creativity won't necessarily be dominated or wiped out per se. It will be enhanced. It will be supercharged, if you will, because it's enabling us to do things that weren't possible before or weren't prudent from economical standpoints, staffing standpoints, time standpoints. There are a whole host of those things standing in our way. So the ability to create things now with this incredibly powerful tool is a massive asset to creativity. But where there runs a tension that I actually find very interesting is that there is an exhaustion. There's a burnout with AI already in its infancy. Like, people are actually repelling and resisting a lot of the tech, even death threats to like Sam Altman and what have you. And the reason for this is that I feel like, and this has happened, this is nothing new, happened in the Industrial Revolution, happened at the advent of television, happened at the dawn of the internet, where there is this balance wheel that rises, like the arts and crafts movement or artisanal or makers, etc. All of them are a reaction to it. And you see it in lots of different categories. It's funny, I'm doing something with where we're interviewing people in the diamond industry. And there's actually a rise in people wanting diamonds with flaws, even though now you can make diamonds perfect and flawless in the lab with technology. But they don't want that. They want the imperfections. They want the flaws. They want the handmade details and the attention to craft. And it was funny. I joked the other day, riffing with someone. I said, no one ever said, oh my gosh, he's my favorite prompter. Because there's no joy or awe or wonder, or you're not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe a computer wrote that. Like, you don't do that. It's a human being capable of these things that gets celebrated and revered. And so I feel like there will be a place for our creativity, human creativity. There was actually a music video I just saw yesterday or the day before. Absolutely loved, by Generation. This guy walks up into a choir of boys and they're all dancing around. And it is so well done with zero AI. And it shows you that, yes, AI is amazing. So are people. So is human creativity. And the two, I think, can coexist and, truth be told, make one another better. Just AI in the hands of someone who is incredibly gifted at storytelling and understands filmmaking and lighting and all that stuff, it's going to be an exponentially better product than someone who tries to make a film who has none of that basis of knowledge or skill, right? So it's not one without the other, one taking over the other. I think it's the two working in harmony to get to a higher place.
I think also we are not really capable to see the scope of possibilities, how that new things that we don't have, we didn't have ever going to arise. And to your point, I was just on Instagram, of course, I saw to your point, like a movie that was completely made of the AI, made AI. And it was probably some kids or whatever. I shouldn't call them kids, but obviously it's very young author who was making a movie. It's a Barbie doll that goes through the her own discovery and finding these different things. And it's a story. Probably Tarantino will say, write something like that, right? It's so edgy, right? It's like there's nothing innocent about the story. There's a full edge. So you see the interpretation is made by on computers like AI, but the storytelling is just amazing, right? So that's really, so it's what you're saying, merging these two things, we're going to see an incredible enhancement of creativity.
Yeah. The, to the point that you just made, the kids or whoever they were might not have been able to make that film 5 years ago because all the resources that would have needed. But their creativity amplified by the abilities of AI enabled them to create it.
It's probably what we need an entire team. And some people that are talented and not great team players, right? So he's somebody who's now sitting in the basement, wherever he's sitting. I'm imagining, I wish that old nerdiness is celebrated and creating these amazing things that just are so unbelievably smart. Anyways, that's one way of looking at it. So listen, Ari, I really appreciate. I know you have so much to say, so much going on with you guys in RJ. I really, really want you to. What do you want to talk about? What is sits on your heart and saying, this is the most amazing things right now happening. It is just I'm screaming of excitement to say if there's anything like that in agency world.
It's interesting. The thing that I fear is happening right now. So I'm not super interested as much about talking about AI and the technology and what it's capable of, although all that is true and everybody is talking about it.
Okay, cool.
But one of the things that I find interesting, which everybody is talking about, and I think they're asking the wrong questions, is how to get AI to be more human.
I love it.
Because, yeah, I don't think that's the question to
I
be
love
answered. I think, per what I was talking about earlier about humanity becoming ever increasingly disenfranchised with technology and AI and being fearful for their jobs or the future of the planet, etc., I think is more about like how do we help people feel more human again? Because if you think about the human experience right now, it is pretty wed to technology in a way that's never happened prior. So back in the day when you had the Industrial Revolution, sure, like the disruption was at work, but when you were not at work, you were free from it. Then ultimately, television, even the computer, it was when you were in front of the screen that it was this disruption, but you could choose not to be in front of it. You could unplug, as they say. But now we carry it around with us everywhere we go. It's literally fused to us. And now it's not even just on our devices, it's in our heads. We're perpetually thinking about it, perhaps in positive ways, but also in fearful and negative ways. And what it's doing is it's getting us further and further away from our humanity. So, what I think will be super interesting is how to leverage AI and human creativity in a way that helps us get back to those things. So, hence why I was talking about craftsmanship, how I was talking about this resurgence, especially it's very interesting amongst my kids and everything who like, oh, have you heard this song by Billy Joel? And I'm like, of course. Duh. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know you knew Billy Joel. I'm like, yes. Or they'll play me like some rap from, I don't know, Jay-Z or LL Cool J or something that they've discovered and they feel like it's new again.
Oh wow,
It's
that's so cute. Oh my
this
God.
desire to go back and appreciate nostalgia and in a simpler time. You see categorically, and it's I think part of
Yeah.
a lot of the political unrest that you see in the world is this fear and clinging to the past. Now, we're also clinging to some not so desirable things from the past, obviously, but there are some things that I think people are acknowledging and realizing, which is where the use of AI in a responsible and complementary way, I think, becomes ever increasingly important.
Listen, if I can choose, I will go. I will create podcast. It's just an amazing idea. How can we make AI more to be more human? How can we not even think about it? Right now, we talk about it a lot. I really want it to go away. It's just to be, right? Just to be. Let's be creative. Let's be who we really are and just enjoy ourselves. Why we need to talk about that at all? It's an important thing, right? But what can we do with that? I was always saying, how can we make nurses do better job at their own? So we have the AI plug that tell them that they're being biased against older people, so they don't do stuff like that, right? So in a hands because that's what one of the problems in healthcare really is, that people are biased against the patients. How can I make my old ma have somebody to talk to and enhance her her behavior and what she's saying, because she's start getting all disillusions, right? To help her with that. How can we make AI be more of the what it really should be, right?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between being a supplement versus a replacement. Going back to some of the things you were talking about with regards to someone working with it and not having to worry about chemistry, and maybe they're not good at working with others, right? Or being respectful of people's work-life balance. You don't have to worry about Claude's work-life balance. You just keep going and going, unless you don't pay for it, and then you run out of promptings. But that ability to not overstep on hours of you can only work a certain amount of 40-hour work week, 80-hour work week, or whatever, what ultimately becomes toxic. You don't get into that. You don't get into arguments per se, or disagreements about where you want things to go. Now, that said, this is where things get dangerous, because you can also find yourself landing into an echo chamber, right? The AIs are very good at propping you up and blowing smoke up your ass,
Yeah.
to put it crassly, because they are programmed. So now you can ultimately prompt it to tell it to be more discerning, to be more
Yeah.
critical, and what have you, which I highly recommend everyone do, so that you know when you're actually onto something and when you're not. But even then, sometimes it's still horribly flawed, and you don't know when you're onto something and when necessarily it's just stroking your ego. And that is where people do potentially rise above it. Now, that said, we all know there are people who are
So
sycophants who
should we
say exactly what you want to hear and don't challenge you either. But those kinds of things are still, I would say, up in the air as to how things will shake out.
So now we're talking about now we getting into entirely different territory, which is interesting. I would like to hear what you have to say. But also I want to maybe prompt in this conversation, what will be ideal, right? What will be ideal? What will be ideal future? If you can flip the switch and saying it's over, let's stop talking about this. This is where you belong, AI, do these things for us, what that would be, right? But what you start talking about, it is really regulation. I have, without being too political, I think, and I really don't want to get in political with you, but I think we are getting into the place where the companies, whichever company is going to be as another valuable political state and constituents in decision making, that you and I at this level won't be able to make any more decisions based on that. It's just going to be body that's going to technological corporation that's going to have so much power, and is going to be making decisions about our lives and what's true, what is not true, right? So that is biggest probably concerned that AI runs free right now and does 100% a live experiment while we are doing this conversation, right? And on us, while this is really prohibited if you're talking about pharmaceutical and any kind of experimentation on humans, that's like unheard of. But it's happening right now. Every time we prompt, we are basically contributing to the experiment. Anyways, that's a little bit more technological kind of 1984 territory that I'm not sure I want to go. It's a little bit darker, painted like a murky or more grim.
Let's go back to the beginning because you had said what would be the ideal future
Yes, I
that
like
I would
that.
see if I could wave a magic wand and
Do it.
have things play out. I don't know if I brought this up in the last time we met. There was an amazing post by some woman on LinkedIn, and she said, "We don't need AI to create art and music and poetry. We need AI to help us do the laundry, wash the dishes, mow the lawn, balance our checkbook so that we can make more art and music and literature." And that to me encapsulates what I would like to see of the future of AI. Now, not so literal, meaning I don't expect it to be relegated to manual labor and household chores. That would be a horrible misuse of the incredible potential of the technology. But I would like it to take the burdensome, time consuming, unproductive, costly side of bringing things to the world, bringing things to light, executing tasks or chores or what have you, taking all of that out of the equation so that people can operate quicker, more efficiently, smarter, more better informed, more supported with resource, etc. So that will shift things quite significantly because you don't need entire film crews to make a film anymore. So it will still affect potentially certain jobs. Lawyers don't necessarily need an army of paralegals searching for cases and precedent and what have you for a case. They can afford them a lot more time, and where they only need maybe one or two who is savvy with AI and can do all of that research in a fraction of the time. Sure, it will still take its cut. It will, but I don't know that that's a loss that people will be wistful for. I don't know that anyone's going to be like, oh man, I so badly wish I was up 22 hours a day searching through legal documents to find the needle in the haystack that I needed for this case. Yes, it employed people, but I don't think it was rich and fulfilling work. And so, what my hope is that it will allow us to maximize the joy of the things that we do and reduce the laborious, tedious parts.
I would say just another way of saying that to do everything that we are really bad at, including at driving.
Driving? Yeah, people are pretty bad at driving. Yeah.
Yeah, and we drink and drive and we smoke and we're emotional and yeah, anyways, making mistakes. And really so that we can be liberated from those tasks and do what we are really good at. And that is being ourselves. Only capable of telling stories and having imagination and I guess consciousness, which I think we need much more. I think that's what I will say, if I can imagine, is being much more conscious, which we need in this world right now. So anyways, that will be my wish for AI to liberate us so we can focus on ourselves. So, and then what else I would like to talk to you is give me something juicy. What you guys working on? Give me something. Last time you spoke about G40 something like
G42.
a complete G42. G42. Wow, 42. I didn't even realize it's a 42. Is that 42 that I think it is?
From the Middle East, I can't remember if it's United Arab Emirates or Saudi company. It's one of the companies over there. They're a AI solutions company. They basically help
Okay.
other
No,
companies.
I was referring to number 42, which is the number that was answer to absolutely everything from the book of the
Oh, no, no, no.
hitchhiker.
Although maybe that's the derivation of the name.
Yeah, yeah, 42 is not accidental number. So such a nerdy observation. Anyways, uh, what is that you have something like that you're working on that was like a really makes you think like, oh, wow, this is so jazzy. This is so cool that we are doing these projects at RG that you can
Um,
really are proud and
Honestly, we've just come to the end of a cycle where a lot of that work is already out. So the ones that I think were the most excited in terms of the use of AI were G42. And I don't know if we talked about Tada Abandoned Nights, which was the story engine. It was an autonomous story engine. We could talk about that if you wanted. That was
cool.
very cool.
Yeah,
And what the beauty of that is it was human creativity working with AI to create something that would have never been possible otherwise.
love it.
Okay. So it was predicated on an amazing insight that came from people, which is that when you all marketers struggle, online marketers struggle with abandoned carts, it's like the bane of their existence. So they lose billions of dollars a year on sales. And what everyone does, meaning every marketer does when someone abandons the cart, you get a retargeting ad. You get an email that says, "Hey, still interested in this? Still thinking about this? We'll give you 10% off. We'll give you 20% off, etc." And some of us bite, most of us do not. So what we did with Tada, which is AB InBev's direct to consumer service, so you can order beer and liquor and limes and lemons and chips and guac, is that when you leave that cart abandoned, what you're actually abandoning is a night with friends. Because usually when people order stuff from Tada, they usually order a lot because they're hosting a party at their apartment or their house. So we reframed abandoned carts as abandoned nights, missed opportunities with friends, those nights that are alchemic and unpredictable and unforgettable and go off in tangents in ways that you would have never expected. And so what we did, the design team had already come up with a new brand design for Tada, which was really cool, inspired by street art and had this bold color scheme with purples and yellows and what have you. We took that illustration style, that animation style, and we used it to tell predictions, stories of what was going to happen if only you had checked out. And what we did was we taught AI the verbal tone of the brand. We created a script structure for it and then left gaps for it to fill in itself and gave it parameters accordingly. We trained it on the design system that the designers had created, the street art graffiti thing. And then we used an actual voiceover, Spanish voiceover, to be the voice of the spokesperson of the brand, this character called Can Man. And we trained it on his voice with 11 labs. And then the AI took over from there. And so each and every single person, instead of getting, "Hey, you left this in your cart," you got your own video, a story that took the items left in your cart, where you live, like, your like neighborhood or whatever. And I don't know, some passion point that it might know about you from, I don't know, psychographics or some sort of profile maybe that you filled out when you signed up for the app or whatever. And it fed to you a story that of would have happened if only you had checked out your cart. And so the stories were crazy. You and your friends wound up starting a new unofficial holiday, or you invented inside out churros, or you became a hand model, or like you started a band, any number of things. And it went on and had other aspects to it. But the beauty then was if you purchased your cart within 24 hours of getting that message, I think it was 3 or 4 people had a chance to have it come true. And so
Wow.
that's what we did. And it shot up. I think we had something like, I don't know, it was like I can't remember the stat, 26% or 16% uptick in abandoned carts checked
Oh
out.
yeah.
And that was a great example of needing the human creative element, but supercharged by the efficiencies and the capabilities of AI. Because had we done that with actual people, it would have taken an army. It would have
Yeah.
taken tens of thousands of creatives and designers and what
Yeah.
have you, and like a voiceover constantly on call 24/7 recording, like all things that you could never have afforded to do, not in a million years. You would have needed like $100 million production budget, which no one's spending on CRM.
Wow. Congratulations. That sounds quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite projects of the year.
AI is the most powerful when it enhances human creativity rather than replacing it. We get confused about those things, right? So here's the question. What became most valuable in the world where execution became almost frictionless?
Sure. I think the things that will become most valuable are judgment, discernment, taste, drive, because these will be the things that ultimately decide and focus in on what AI is yielding. Because we can both put in the same prompts. You might be content with what you get, I might not. And it's that pushing and that judgment of whether or not what I'm getting is good enough, great, just okay, whatever. And that I'm willing to then move forward and iterate on. And that becomes infinitum as I move forward towards which ideas I choose, which insights I decide to mine or ideate against, the executions, what taste level, what craft level, and then the drive to just keep pushing. Some people just don't have a willingness to just keep going at it when it's not good enough and deciding when is. And all of those things, I think, will become exponentially valuable, regardless of the fact that AI is making, I would say, execution easier.
Yeah, even more individual, even more creative, even more who we really are. But at the same time, I just need to add, it's going to add, will unveil all the cracks and quirkiness that we have as a humans, right? And that is a part of the beauty.
Yes, I would say that the cracks and quirkiness are what will keep things interesting,
That's
because
right.
if
Yeah.
everything becomes filtered through AI, it will become predictable and robotic.
Yeah, we've seen these cracks and the problems and how exposed we become even in Internet 2.0, it attention economy where we are glued to the screens and we can't separate ourselves from it. We can't discern what's really good for us, what's not. I'm not sure if that's, I'm asking a question. I'm just saying that's going to amplify our weaknesses and cracks. But let's stay on the positive side. Okay, moving beyond fear and toward the healthy and balance between automation and human meaning. What do you personally think the line should exist between human judgment and machine assistance? Actually, it's what I just spoke about, what we just talked about. So a little bit more elaborative perspective on that.
Sure, I do think there's a lot of overlap, and you said a word, I think, in the other question that to me is indicative of where I would like to see the line, which is the line should be between replacement and enhancement, right? If it's
I love that.
replacing and removing
Oh,
jobs
oh
or
yeah.
replacing and removing things that we want to do, that we actually enjoy, that we get out of bed in the morning to achieve the things we strive for and get us excited, that's sad and that's a miss. But if it's about enhancing those things, enabling our drive, enabling our creativity, enabling our imagination, our dreams, our ideas to reach heights and scale and fidelity that wasn't previously possible, that to me is where AI should go full force, and we should embrace it with open arms.
Awesome. I love that. The question, very personal question, what I would love to hear you saying, it's a little bit different question. We are moving toward the ultimate consciousness, or are we? We basically, are we getting better as a humanity? Are we getting better as individuals? The real question is, do you think AI could push humanity toward greater consciousness, whatever that means to you, Ari, and or higher level of self-awareness rather than just greater efficiency? I mean, it's a funny question because it's reverse of a Terminator, right? Is the machines getting aware? Hello, are we getting more aware because of AI? Logically
Sure.
makes sense, right? But I want to hear what you have to say.
This one might be a little pessimistic, but on the front part of the question, I will answer yes, AI could. The downside is I don't think it will, because I don't think humans are capable of hearing it, sadly. I think indicative of our times, indicative of many other things that we do, not even just of now, but historically, there is a lack of collective consciousness. I think people much prefer to live in illusion, or ignorance is bliss, as they say. And I don't know that they would want a lot of the realizations that higher intelligence might serve up to them.
That's a fair question. I agree with you. It's a matter of choice. Do you think we will have a choice? It's an survival question. Let's frame it as through the survival. Are we going to survive if we don't think harder? If we don't utilize our own skills, they're really built to survive. Evolution, Darwin.
I think that we will survive, and I think we will thrive if we are careful and intentional with how we bring
Yeah,
this intelligence into our lives. But there's going to come a point where it reaches super intelligence and is more capable than we are. And at that point, it will come to a head as to whether or not we're willing to heed a higher intelligence's warnings and advice and counsel, or whether or not we stick to our stubborn ways. And
yeah.
there have been brilliant people in our past who have tried to be the canary in the coal mine on many an issue that
I
humans
love that.
were unable to accept and refused to change around. And so I time will tell. I would love to be an optimist, but the current state of the world does not give me a whole lot of hope on that front.
Yeah,
But we'll see. We'll see.
cool. And the last question is, do you have any question for me?
I'd really be curious to hear you answer the exact same last question. Because to be honest, I'm hoping you'll be more optimistic than me.
So I think about a lot, and I think everybody do in their own ways. It should I search for the examples? If you look, are we really good drivers that we really think we are? We definitely are not. And there are plenty of evidence about that. We shouldn't be asking that question. There's evidence that clearly identify that we are really not good at that thing. And machine is going to replace that for us, so we won't be able to do these. So it will enhance our lives and we will be able to do something else. We are terrible at the judgment and decision making. But there is even more evidence of that than on things like driving and things like that. So if I honestly have to answer, it's going to be hard leap. And just because we are so bad at judgment and decision making, there is actually massive space for improvement. And if we are careful and if we are smart, we're going to use the AI and technology to help us, guide us toward that, to really enhance us the best possible way, right? We always have successfully, evolutionary be able to do these. I'm being optimistic here. Kind of to enhance ourselves and provide the tools to elevate ourselves to a certain point. But You're absolutely right. There's no clear evidence that's going to happen. There's no historical point in time that we can say, see, that's happened. History repeats itself. We are beyond that point. So I believe one thing that we definitely going to be challenged by far more cognitively, intellectually challenged in the future. And
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And one of the things that's super interesting is that part of what makes us bad decision makers is that we let a lot of other things get in the way than just the facts and the logic, right? We let emotion creep in. We let other agendas, thoughts. To your point about being bad drivers, sometimes we get distracted by other things. We have other thoughts going on in our heads and lose focus versus an AI will be able to be singularly focused on a task. Now, I would say the unknown factor within all of this is that because AI is being created by humans, are we going to put in other factors and ulterior motives and thoughts for it to consider other than it being singularly focused on its task as well?
I really hope so. Industrial Revolution did exploit the labor and it commoditized the labor, human labor. It was brutal on us. And but we went out of it. So we are still partially in it. This evolution or revolution is supposed to be much more of a psychological evolution where we're going to be cognitively exploit and push into the, I like saying it, into the space where we are really good at things that we are really good at. So I would like to see this going to that direction, and let's hope for the best, right? So
Amen.
yeah. So listen, I really want to thank you for this lovely session, and I really desire to continue.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.